Hello everybody, Jordan from DynaScape here, and welcome to the construction estimating video. In this video, of course, we're going to be learning how to build construction estimates. So let's get started. Right now you can see that we're on the home page, and in order to build our very first construction estimate, we are going to go to Sales Construction Estimates. Now, from the Construction Estimates menu, we can see all of our existing construction estimates, depending on the view that we have open. As you can see right now, I'm in the Jordan's Open Estimates view, but if I had a different view selected, I would see different results. Now, to get started on a brand new estimate, what I'm going to do is go over to the right side of the screen and click on the blue New Estimate button. Now at this point, you should have your budget entered, your cost book filled out, and learn how to create customer accounts and opportunities. So if you haven't seen any of that stuff yet, go back and watch one of those other videos to get caught up. The first thing that Manage is asking me to do in order to create the estimate is select one of my opportunities. Now I'm going to select trusty old Joe Blow here because we already have an opportunity that exists, but if we didn't have one, we'd be able to create one from the button on the right. The next thing that it's going to ask me is if I'd like to select an estimate template. Now on a brand new website, you won't have any estimate templates, so blank estimate is going to be your only option. However, estimate templates are a very useful feature, and we're going to learn how to create them as part of this video. Right now, I'm going to select blank estimate. Now that we've entered all the required information, we were able to build the estimate. The first place on the estimate that we're going to land is the General Info tab. From here, you can do things like change the name of the estimate, change who the salesperson is, or also reference some important information down below. Let's go through these one by one. The estimate will automatically get its name from the opportunity that came before it, so my Joe Blow opportunity created a Joe Blow estimate. If you'd like to change your estimate name to something a little bit more descriptive, now's a good time. I'm going to change the name of my estimate to Residential Backyard 2020. The estimate number comes from your division settings, which is covered in this setup video. Below the estimate number, we have a link to the original opportunity. Below that, we can see the opportunity type that was assigned to the opportunity. We can see the division that we're working in. We can see the estimate status is open. And that's, of course, always going to be normal for a brand new estimate. We can also see that the estimate is active. Now this checkbox right here relates to whether the estimate itself is going to be active or inactive, also called archived in Manage 360. Now we're going to cover that a little bit later, but that relates to an option over in the Actions menu called Create New Version. So we're going to demo that later on in this video. On the right you can see the estimation date, which defaults to the day that you create the estimate. So if you need to change this date, you can change it whenever you want. The expiry date is automatically calculated from the days to expiration, which is another option that can be found in your division settings, and again, covered in this setup video. 30 days from now, it will be June 10th, so that is our expiry date. If I need more than 30 days or less, I can just change the expiry date like so. Next, I have my employee assignments for salesperson, designer, and estimator. Only salesperson is required, so I can leave designer and estimator both unassigned. If you assigned any of these roles back on the opportunity, then they will carry forward here to the estimate. These assignments simply allow you to see who is assigned as the salesperson, who is assigned as the designer for an estimate, and then allow you to run reports based off of this information. Let's move on to the Notes tab. There are a few different areas here that you can fill out your own notes if you'd like to. The first one is Opportunity Notes. Opportunity notes are not something that you're intended to fill out here on this page, but rather back on the opportunity itself. If the salesperson wrote down any notes as they were filling out the opportunity, then those notes pull forward from the opportunity to right here for you to reference later. The next area is Proposal Notes. Proposal notes are also not required, but if you'd like to communicate something directly to this customer that will appear on their proposal, sort of near the top of the proposal, then you can enter that information right here. The next section is Crew Instructions. Now as you can see here, it says these are notes that will appear on the timesheet. Timesheets are associated with Tier 2 of Manage 360, so if you're using Tier 1, these notes will actually appear on the work order report if you choose to print that out. Here we typically enter notes or instructions that the crew can read if they take a work order report or a timesheet with them into the field. The next section is private notes, and these notes don't go anywhere. They're only for your own personal reference if you want to write anything down in here. Let's continue moving on to the main part of the estimate, the Items tab. The Items tab is actually where we're going to be building the estimate, so you're going to spend most of your time here. Now the first thing you're going to want to do in building a brand new estimate is think about how you're going to break it down and organize it. To that end, we have work areas. If you want to break your estimate down into a front yard and a backyard, have an irrigation section, or break everything down into phases, that's what you use work areas for. Creating my work area is a good first step. To get started, I'm going to click on the Add Work Area button, and then give my work area a name. Now the name of course identifies the work area, and then we also have notes down below. These notes are optional and are mainly in place to communicate information to the customer on their proposal. Entering work area notes tends to make the proposal look a lot nicer, so let's enter some right now. The Include in General Conditions button is covered in the General Conditions video, so you can go check that out if you're wondering what it does, but it essentially will cause the general conditions to ignore this work area completely. Once we have everything set up here, we can click the Save button to create our work area. Now you're usually going to want a couple different work areas, so I'm going to create a second one right now. So far I've broken my estimate down into two components, a front yard and a backyard, so now I actually have to start building it by adding items to it. To do that, I'm going to click the Add Items button, found right here. The Add Items button opens up this kind of shopping cart area from which you're able to browse through your whole cost book and look for the items that you want to add to your estimate. Let's start by looking for a kit that we want to add to our estimate. Now if you're wondering about building kits, you should go check out the kit building video, but right now we're just going to take one and add it to the estimate. Now I'd like to do some mulching, so I'm going to search for my mulching kit, and then I'm going to tell the estimate how much of my kit I would like to add. This kit also has lead items, so I'm going to select the lead item that I want to use. And then I'm going to tell the estimate which work area this kit belongs to. I can continue browsing through the cost book to look for more items to add to my estimate, but right now that's good enough. Let's complete this by hitting the Add to Estimate button. You can see that I now have a kit in my front yard work area on the estimate. If I go ahead and expand this kit, you can see that there is mulch and labor contained within the kit. So that's an important note right there. You can expand and collapse any of these categories by simply clicking on them. Let's go back into the cost book to add some more items. Let's say we're going to install a patio in the backyard. I have here a paver patio and walkway kit, so we're going to select that. Once again, I'm going to tell Manage 360 how much of the kit that I need, and then I'm going to select my lead item if it asks me for one. This kit has a bunch of different stuff in it. As you can see, it's got paver, it's got gravel, it's got labor. So you can use kits to accomplish a lot of different things. Let's go back into the cost book one more time and add a few more things. Let's take some plants and add them to the front yard. Now if I want to add a plant, I can simply search through my cost book or filter down by any of the categories that I have right in front of me, even go through a list of my own favorite items. Let's select this balsam fir and see what options it presents us with. Right now it's asking us how many plants do we want to add, where do they belong, and then I have the option to add the plant as a kit. This is not the same as a kit that we've built ahead of time in the cost book, but rather taking advantage of the fact that a kit is sort of like a subcategory within the work area. So if we want to use add as kit right here, we're purely doing it to organize our estimate a little bit differently, which we'll see in a moment. Under the advanced area, I'm able to choose a few more options for my plant, namely, where within the work area does this plant belong. The kit drop-down list allows me to browse through the various kits that I have within my work areas. Now in my front yard work area, I have cost book items and that mulching kit that I added earlier. Cost book items is the default area for your items to go. If it doesn't go into a kit, it goes under the cost book items area. My other options are using the Add as Kit checkbox, selecting a kit to add the item to, or clicking the green plus button and creating a brand new kit for this item to go into. Next, I can see hours per plant. This is the install rate for this plant, which can be found under cost book plant sizes. So this half an hour per plant is associated with the size of the plant that we're adding. Next, I can see labor rate, and this is the rate that we're charging for that half an hour per plant of labor. I can change the supplier that I'm getting the plant from, and I can also adjust the plant cost from right here. Now, if everything looks okay, we can just hit the Save button, and you can see that on the right-hand side, it's bringing along the planting labor and the 5 plants that I asked for. Let's continue on, add these to the estimate. Now you can see that that plant ended up going under cost book items, along with the labor. Now once again, my alternative was to either create a new area for it to go, or put it under the mulching kit that is already in my front yard. Now my alternatives were to create a new area for it to go, or put it under that mulching kit that's already in my front yard. Let's go back another time and add some more items. We're going to add a plant again, but this time I'm going to hit the Add as Kit button. With Add as Kit selected, it created a kit with the same name as my plant and put the plant and the labor under that kit. Now this is purely for organization. You can put your items in different areas on the estimate so it makes sense to you. You also have the option of displaying kit names and kit prices on your proposals to the customer. So some people will use this feature to display an install price instead of an individual price for their plants. If I'd like to rename this kit to something else, I can simply hit the Edit button and give the kit a new name. Now let's go back to Add Items again. This time we're going to add a material, and we're going to use that green plus button I was talking about. Let's take these 10-inch galvanized spikes just to put something into the estimate. Now within my front yard, I have mulching kit, cost book items, and plants to put these spikes. Now these don't really belong in any one of these 3 areas, so I can now create a new area for them to go. Hit the green plus button, give your new kit a name, save it, and then make sure you select it from here. I now have my estimate organized in a very deliberate manner. My plants can go into the plant kit, my materials can go into the material kit, my mulch kit is for my mulch, and anything else can go under cost book items if I want to put them there. You can also dictate the order of these kits. You can simply drag and drop to move the kits around. You can do this with work areas as well, and the order of the work areas and the order of the kits is the order they're going to be on the proposal when you print it out for the customer. Now that we know how to add items to estimates, let's go ahead and check out some of the views that we have access to. The simple view is the one that we've been using so far, and all it tells us is the quantity, the cost, and the price of all the stuff that we've added to the estimate so far. If we want to take things a step further, we can switch over to the Edit view, and this will allow us to view and edit the supplier that we're receiving the goods from, as well as purchasing tax and sales tax rates for each item. You can see right here that if I want to change the sales tax, I can simply click on the drop-down list, select a different tax rate, and it will recalculate into the grand total down below. The same with the other drop-downs. If I change the supplier, then the supplier is simply changed, and if I change the purchasing tax, then the tax will be applied. And that's all there is to the Edit view, so let's check out the Analysis view. The analysis view is best viewed with everything collapsed. As you can see, it gives us a breakdown of the cost of each type of item on the estimate, as well as the quantity of labor in each work area. Now those are all the views, so the final thing I'm going to mention for the Items tab is the Add General Conditions button. It's important to know where this button is, but we're not going to cover it in this video. If you'd like to learn about general conditions, then you can check out the General Conditions video. Our final tab here is Payment Options. As you can see, we have 3 payment methods available: manual, milestone, and percentage of completion. Now before I go into detail about the payment options, I'll mention that invoicing is only available in Tier 2. So if you're using Tier 1, these billing schedules will simply appear on the proposal and you won't follow through with invoices, at least in Manage 360 later on. Let's go through the payment options one by one. Our first method is manual billing. As the name suggests, everything is handled manually. Manage 360 won't suggest when to create an invoice or how much that invoice should be for. You have to do it manually. Milestone billing is the most popular. These payment schedules can be found under Settings, Payment Schedules, if you'd like to create or edit some of your own. If I want to use a different payment schedule, all I have to do is select the desired one from the drop-down list, and Manage 360 will recalculate for me. You're also able to manually add, edit, or remove payments as you see fit. The final option here is percentage of completion billing, and as its name suggests, you bill based on the percentage of completion of the job. If on the job you enter that you're 25% complete, you'll get an invoice for 25% of the grand total. Now a quick note about saving. It's very important to save your estimate often, since we're working online. Anytime you make some important changes, be sure to come up here and click the Save button. Now when you click the Save button, you might get this message popping up and asking you if you'd like to recalculate your general conditions. Now again, if you want to know more about general conditions, just check out that general conditions video, but whenever you're building an estimate, you will see this message often. One more important feature to mention right now is estimate locking. Since I have this estimate open, I have it locked under my user account, and that means that nobody else can go in and edit this estimate while I'm working on it. When I open up the estimate, I send a message to Manage 360 that tells it that I have it open and that it's locked for everybody else to use. This means that I also need to tell Manage 360 when I'm done with it so that it can be unlocked. In order to unlock the estimate, we need to leave it properly. To leave the estimate properly, we hit the Save and Close button or the Cancel button. So don't just close off your tabs. Otherwise, the estimate may remain locked even when you're not using it anymore. Now, the final section of the construction estimate to touch on is the Actions menu. The first option here on the Actions menu is the Import button. Now, this option is only useful if you're using DynaScape Design in conjunction with Manage 360. What you're able to do is label a design using the cost book items from Manage 360 and then import that design to Manage 360 to get a takeoff. Let's see that in action. To get started, I'm going to click on the Import button, and then a pop-up window will ask me to select the design file that I'd like to import. Now a quick note about this, it's not the DPD file that you might be used to using, it's a special DMX file. To get the DMX file, you need to open up DynaScape Design, click on File, and then export it to the DynaScape Manage 360 export file. Now I've got one that I already made, so let's go ahead and click on Choose File to browse for it. It's going to automatically open my Downloads folder, so from here I can select my DMX file if I have one. Once I have it selected, I simply click the Upload button. From here I'm presented with a summary of all the plants and materials or anything else that I have on my design. This is so you can review and confirm anything that was on the design before you bring it into Manage. If everything looks good, you can go ahead and hit Submit. On the design, I entered all my plants under this Front Garden Plants work area, so the import created it and put them all there for me. Let's go back to the Actions menu and move on. The next option here is View Proposal, and this is a big enough topic that we actually cover it in a different video, so if you want to know more about creating proposals, go ahead and check out the Proposals video. The next option is the Reports area, so let's go ahead and open that up. You can see that there are 3 reports on this list right now, and these are reports that are specific to this one estimate that we have open. So this is unrelated to the main reports menu found right up here. Now the 3 reports I have available are pretty simple: the material list, the estimate analysis report, and the work order report. Now the material list and the work order report are both pretty similar, as they will both list the items on the estimate into a format that looks good when you print it out. Let's go ahead and check them out one by one. Now with any report in Manage 360, there's a lot of different configuration options, so you can run the same report in a number of different ways. Anything with a checkbox next to it is a filter, so I'm able to actually include or exclude certain work areas or types of items on here simply by clicking on the checkboxes. I have some more options, such as include zero quantity items, where if I added an item onto the estimate but set the quantity to 0, I can choose to include or exclude those types of items. Now some people will do that simply to have a placeholder item that they might update the quantity of later. So if you're doing that, you might want to hide those items from the report. The next option is how we're going to display plant names. So since this is a report that can print out plants, we might want to show plants in a specific way. Then I have more filters, this time for plant category, so I could run a report just for my annuals. Then I have material category, so I could just print out my paving stone if I wanted. And then I have a lot of grouping options. Now the grouping options will determine how the report information is presented. If I group by work area, my front yard, my backyard, all that organization will be respected. On the other hand, I might want to group by supplier in addition to or instead of grouping by work area. This can make this a useful report to purchase from, since I can get all the items grouped by the supplier that I'm supposed to order them from. The next option, group by size, will allow you to group plants of a similar size along with each other. Group by category will keep the items under their respective categories. And that's like trees, shrubs, annuals, perennials, paving stone, lighting or irrigation fixtures, whatever you have set up as a category in Manage 360. Final 2 options show costs. So depending on who this report is going to, this may be a very important option to show or to hide. The same with SKU. If you're using this report to purchase from, SKUs and grouping by supplier can be pretty helpful. Let's leave the settings as they are currently, group by work area and show SKUs. Now if we want to generate the report, all we need to do is hit on View Report. If we want to actually save a copy of this report, we need to click on the floppy disk icon and then choose what file type we'd like to export to. But as you can see, this report is listing all of the items on the estimate and grouping them by work area and then by item type. Let's go check out one of the other reports. We'll look at the work order report next because it's very similar to the material list. As you can see, we have filtering again. We have the same option to include zero quantity items. Now this report can show labor on it, so we have the option to show labor totals. I'm going to set this option to yes. The work order report can be useful to print off and give to the crew, so it gives them an overview of the entire job that they're doing. Because it's for the crew, showing labor totals can be useful because it gives them a sense of how much labor they have allocated to a particular area or activity. Going down, I once again have filters for categories, and then my grouping options. A little bit different for the work order report than the material list report. On the work order report, we can once again group by work area, but we can also group by kit. We can display the customer account information, display the crew instructions, since once again this is potentially a crew-oriented report. I can display work area descriptions if those are going to be useful, in this case again to the crew on the report, as well as kit descriptions and item descriptions, again if they're helpful. A notable difference on this report is that it says show unit price instead of show cost. So the material list will display the cost, and the work order report will display the price if you want them to. Let's go ahead and view this report. As you can see, it breaks down my work areas and my kits, also displays descriptions of things, and you can see my labor totals right up here. If I put any crew instructions, they would be available right here at the top. Let's back out and go check out the final report, the estimate analysis report. Now this report is unique in Manage 360 in that there's nothing to configure, it simply runs the way it is. So all we need to do is hit View Report. The Estimate Analysis Report provides a complete pricing breakdown of every single line item on the proposal. So if you're wondering why the estimate costs what it does, this is the report to go check out. You can see every line item is broken down not only in the quantity and the cost, but also the overhead allocated to it, the break-even point, which would be cost plus overhead, and then how much profit you're expecting to make. Down at the bottom, we can see some additional totals. Instead of just net profit, we can also see gross profit, or gross profit without subcontractors. So once again, a very good report to analyze the cost and the price of the estimate. Let's go back out and continue on with our exploration of the Actions menu. My next option here, Create New Version. Now this is an option specifically for creating revisions of an estimate. So if you submit a proposal to the customer, they bring it back to you, they want to change some things, you can back up the original and get started working on a new copy by clicking on the Create New Version button. When I click on this button, you can see a pop-up will come up and it will say that versioning this estimate will archive it and create a new revision. Are you sure you want to do it? Now let's say okay. What's going to happen is the original version is backed up, and on that original version, that estimate is active checkbox comes into play. So we are actually right now on the revision, and we can tell that's the case because we see a 0.1 at the end of the estimate number. This is my revision version of the estimate. If I want to go and see the original version, I can go and search through my list of construction estimates. I can go and look under the customer's account, or since I'm already right here, I can click on the opportunity to take a look there. Now from the opportunity, I'd want to go to the Construction Estimates tab to see all the estimates under that opportunity. So we can see right here, this one does not have a 0.1 at the end. This is the original estimate, and it's archived. And it's archived because we made a new version of it, and we also, when that happened, it unchecked the estimate is active checkbox. Now let's go back to our current version. Now on the revision, you're probably going to continue to make some changes. Maybe the customer wanted to remove or substitute or add something, and it's going to result in a fundamental change on this estimate. That's why we needed to make a new version. So we would go through the same process as before, build the estimate, send the proposal, and if the customer accepts this copy, then this is the estimate that we would win. If the customer wanted the old version, we could simply go back to the old version and win that one instead. But ultimately, we're going to be able to make several different versions, but one of them is going to be the version that we're going to win. You can win multiple estimates if you have multiple estimates under the same opportunity, but the second one you win will prompt you to create it under a brand new opportunity instead. It's pretty straightforward. Once you experiment around with it, you'll get the hang of it. Now let's move on to the rest of the Actions menu. Delete the estimate. This one is pretty self-explanatory. If you don't need the estimate anymore, maybe you accidentally created a new version, you can simply delete it. Save as template is an important one. Now this brings us all the way back to the beginning of this session when we had the opportunity to create the estimate as a blank estimate or from a template. Now, as I said before, on a brand new website, you don't have any templates, so it's up to you to create them if you want to use them. Templates are essentially takeoffs for your estimates. You build the estimate the way you want it to be as your starting point, and then you save it as a template. Typically, the way people will do this is create a brand new estimate, make it very generic, because once again, that's going to be their starting point. Click the Save as Template button, which will prompt you to enter a name for your template, and then once you confirm it and save, it'll be added to your list of estimate templates. The next time you go ahead and build a brand new estimate, the template will be there for you to select. And that will be your new starting point, unless you want to start from blank, of course. All the estimate templates you've ever created can be found under Settings, Estimate Templates, and there you can simply look at all the ones that you've created before and delete them if you don't need them anymore. I'm going to hit Cancel to get out of this menu. Let's move on to the rest of the actions. We have Refresh Estimate. Now this one will actually explain itself when you click on it, but there's an important concept to understand before you go into this, and it's that when you build the estimate, everything is essentially copied and pasted into the estimate when you add it in. So that means if you had an estimate created a month ago and then all of a sudden your prices changed because you got a new vendor list, or because you updated your tax rates, or you changed your budget, your old estimates will not be affected. If you want to update an old estimate to the new pricing, that's why you come here and you click Refresh Estimate. It will update the costs to the current cost book costs. It'll update your overhead and profit to their current settings, and the same with taxes. You select the options that you want to update, and then you hit Apply, and then it will refresh the estimate for you to bring everything in sync with the current pricing. Now the final two actions we have here are Estimate 1 and Estimate Lost, and this is really the end of the road for an estimate. If you submit the proposal to the customer and then they want you to do the work, then the outcome is 1, and you would click on Estimate 1. Now when you win an estimate or lose it, it will both close the estimate and the opportunity that's associated with it, and will mark them both as either won or lost, depending on what you've selected. We can go a little bit beyond won or lost though by selecting an outcome reason, which is the drop-down list right here. And if you'd like to edit your list of outcome reasons, you can do that in the settings under, of course, outcome reasons. Here we're saying that we won the estimate because maybe our price was really good and we beat out the competition. Maybe it's our reputation. They've seen some of our work before and wanted us to work with them. Or maybe it was something else. And we can simply select Other and enter the comments so we can keep track of them. Now, projected start date is just for your own reference, so you can select it if you want to. It's not terribly important. Same with the crew assignment. Now, if you're using Tier 1, you're not going to be using crews or scheduling for construction. For Tier 2, then that will become a little bit more important when you're trying to put the job onto your calendar. Now, my final step would be to click the Win button to complete the process, but we're going to take a look at Estimate Lost first before we do that. Now, Estimate Lost works pretty much the exact same, except the process stops here. When I lose the estimate, it closes, the opportunity closes, they're marked as a loss, and it will appear that way on my sales performance summary report as a loss, but I get no job. If I win the estimate, then that's not the end of it. When I win it, it's going to automatically navigate me to the job. Now, what you can do with the job depends on your Manage 360 subscription. Again, things like timesheets, invoicing, that's all Tier 2. So if you're interested in that, you can talk to an account manager. Now that is it for the construction estimating video. I hope you enjoyed this one and you found it helpful, and I'll see you again in another one. Take care.
Thank you for watching this Manage 360 training video. View the next video to continue your training, and for any questions, visit our website at DynaScape.com.